I'm very excited to talk to Tom in California.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom in California. You're on the air with V and Katy. How can we help you today?
Hello, V and Katy. How are you doing today?
Doing good. What is on your mind?
I'm actually calling for some advice. I'm a very new atheist.
Oh, congratulations. Welcome to the club.
The two of you was, after you deconvert, what is the next step? Or is there even a next step? It feels like there should be one.
That's a really good question.
Mm.
That's a good question.
I think, I guess it depends about, like, for me, the first thing I would think about is like your social circle and like the structures in your life. I know that a lot of religious people have a lot of their life based around their religion and everything that comes with that, you know, the community and all that kind of stuff. And if you are someone who lives in a really secular country and you were the only religious person you knew and you stop being religious, then there might not need to be a next step. But I think for a lot of people, there's a lot of things tied up in their beliefs, you know, in their day-to-day life. And it's good to not just, you know, maybe some of those things you can drop. Maybe you used to go to church on a Sunday and now you don't anymore, and you just don't need to replace it. But if you've got like a huge community supporting you and you suddenly don't have a big community anymore, then you might find certain things in your life more difficult if you don't at least consider what you might need to replace and what you might need to work around and that kind of stuff.
How's that strike you, Tom?
That sounds like good advice. This has actually been kind of, when I'm thinking about it, it's been kind of a long process. I grew up in a very religious community and our school was religious, but in a way, they kind of prepared us for the outside world. We were encouraged to ask questions. We were taught science. Like, we were told that evolution is true, that it is factual, and that, you know, Noah's Ark is scientifically impossible. And so I grew up kind of paradoxically in both worlds, I suppose. And then we had the pandemic and I kind of fell down a rabbit hole and I discovered your channel and I've been listening to it, and that kind of helped with my deconversion. And then the student in me is still trying to learn more things. I've been studying, I'm going to say his name wrong, Bill Zurcher, I believe is what his name is. And he talks about the history of God and how it all came to be. And I found that fascinating. Mm-hmm. But I guess maybe it's still part of the religious background. I feel like there should be more, or there's some more research that I should do.
Uh-huh.
I guess, sorry, did you want to say something, V? I didn't mean to cut you off again.
Oh, you're fine. Go ahead.
Okay. I guess something that I've had both times that I've kind of come out as something to myself, like an atheist and also as a trans person, was that I kind of felt like I needed to learn more about it because in a way I was still quite insecure about it. Like, if someone, when I was first becoming an atheist when I was like 16 or 17 or something, if someone confronted me about that, there was so many gaps in my understanding. Like, you know, a good sort of apologist could have asked me a question from a certain angle that I hadn't thought about before, and I might have felt like it was wrong, but I might not been able to argue that and like step by step walk through it. And that made me feel quite insecure about it. And also, you know, like, it isn't kind of an identity in a way, and someone's kind of challenging you and you feel like, oh God, you know, I don't understand this, or just that you need to defend yourself. And I think that sometimes doing research can just make you feel more confident and more sort of, you know, secure as the, like, in your position, I guess.
Yeah, I would jump off that exactly, Katy, and say, if your instinct is to do more research, do it. Like, that's awesome. Yeah. I'm in the process of putting together a book list because I keep telling people, like, read books, and then they're like, which ones? And I'm like, well, I'll get back to you on that. But Tom, I think that if you grew up Christian, even if you went to a Christian school that was not science denying, which is good to hear, because my first thought was, learn about science. If that part has kind of been covered, I guarantee you there are other things that are still going to be holding on. And that is why my initial instinct to this, as an answer to this question, is there is no next step, because deconversion does take a lifetime. It's not a thing you do once and then you're done. It's a thing that you constantly need to be aware of. And even if you didn't grow up religious, you live in a society that is influenced primarily by a religious history and religious background. So there are a lot of things that we take for granted as part of secular culture even that have religious roots. And so if the goal, and this doesn't have to be everybody's goal, right? But if your goal is to fully understand how religion has impacted you and is impacting you, that deconversion process is not going to just apply to the God question. It's going to apply to pretty much everything that you approach now. And so I think that at this point, you're at the brink, you've gone through that door, right? That first door of deconverting from a religion. This religion is false, right? This God does not exist. Now you're in the house and you get to explore it, right? And you get to go into every room and you get to look under the beds and you get to open the closets and you get to see what's in here now, right? What is in here that won't serve me anymore, that is inaccurate, that's not factual, that's harmful. And that process can take a long time. And there's no deadline.
Yeah, I guess the no deadline's a good point about it. Like, you don't have to do any of this. You could just, if you used to go to church and you used to, talk to your pastor or whatever, you could just stop and then you could just never think about it again. And, you would still be not religious. You would still be an atheist. And if you wouldn't get anything out of your life to go any further, then don't. But I think the point that V's making is that there are a lot of things that religion does influence in people's lives, and certainly maybe more from the skeptic angle. Like, you can apply this skepticism that's got you to where you are now to other things, and knowing the most true things and the least false things possible can make your life better. So that's, it's a good thing to do that I would recommend. But if you don't like it, or you can't be bothered, or you just need a break because deconverting is stressful, then have a holiday from it. Don't think about it for 6 months, 5 years, whatever, if you don't want to.
Absolutely. I love that you brought up skepticism specifically, Katy, because that is kind of, I think, what I would say, if you did want an action plan, next step, next book to read, I think focusing on informal logic is a great place to start, because that talks about all the ways that people argue fallaciously, and all the way you can break down an argument from another person and see if they're using fallacies, see if they're falling prey to any kind of bias, and how we use language to prove points. And that is going to be more crucial than anything related to the Bible or your religious background, to making sure that you're not only not falling for things that people are trying to pull you back with, but also not falling for things in the future about, religious claims or other claims at all.
Right. This has been so helpful.
Good.
That's great.
Awesome. Well, this was a great question, and I think it's one that not enough people have heard asked, and so have an answer to. So thank you, Tom, for calling in and asking.
Thank you. You both have a great day.
You too.
Thank you, Angie.
Bye.
So, on saying about when I sort of came out to myself and felt insecure, I remember doing a lot of arguing and discussing and understanding and learning and stuff about atheism and theism stuff. And then I got to a point where I was kind of done with it. And I honestly went years without considering gods or religions or anything, years of my life where it just was not a factor, because where I went to university, there just wasn't any religious people really, and it's just not important. And I kind of got back into it, and I think because I just addicted to arguing basically. But not everyone has to, it doesn't have to be a huge influence in your life, but
Exactly. I was the same way when I was living in Portland. That city is it's not very religious. And so there wasn't that conflict there to make me into an activist, right? It took moving into a Midwestern city that was very influenced by, Christian conservative politics to be like, oh, I need to do something about this. So yeah, it's not something that's required. You are still an atheist, regardless of how much deconstruction you do. But if you're looking for a next step, that could be a good place to start.
Yeah.